ever found yourself wondering what it must be like for a very small, a little chunky, very cute British woman to date in the city of Los Angeles? Well, look no further because this podcast is for you. I moved to LA about 6 weeks ago, and in that time, I have had possibly some real stinkers of dates. And this podcast episode, or whatever we're going to call it, because I'm not entirely sure what it actually is going to divulge some of the most harrowing, and not quite harrowing in the murderous intention sense, to my knowledge. Although I am surprised that the first man that I went on a date with didn't murder me. He definitely gave the vibe that he would like to. I think that these anecdotes of the dates that I have had in LA will be hopefully somewhat entertaining for you. They were not entertaining for me at the time, mainly because I was the person in it. But as you can see, here I am, alive and safe and well. Mentally stunted since those dates. But I'm still alive, still kicking it. I think that this starting episode should be a kind of rundown of how I initially got my dates, because I think not many people want to admit that they are on Tinder. Personally, I don't think it really matters. Hinge, Tinder, what's the other one? Bumble? I mean, it's all the same thing. It is a dating app at the end of the day. I don't think that Hinge has any precedence over Tinder. You can meet some ugly, horrible men on Hinge. You can meet some very handsome, well-rounded, respectful men on Tinder. It is just more so the reputation that they have as apps are not great. Tinder being my main platform of dating, and where I met most of my dates. And you would normally think that that is why I am able to make this podcast about how many harrowing dates that I have been on, purely because I'm meeting men in the wrong places. But to be completely frank with you, I am currently dating a man who is respectful and is kind and is not, to my knowledge, wanting to commit a crime against me. And I met him on Tinder, so that is a fortunate turn of events for me, especially when it comes to Tinder dating. So, just to bring this round full circle, it back to the start of what do they call it? Inauguration. My inauguration into the LA dating scene. I downloaded Tinder maybe a week. Actually, that's not true. I think I always had Tinder, and I didn't download it. I just changed the settings to my current location in California 2 days actually after I got here. The main reason being that the first 2 days for me, I was like really jet lagged and sick. As you may have heard in a previous video, my experience of that flight was jarring, embarrassing, uncomfortable, enlightening, to the type of person I am, apparently, the type of flyer I am. Not a great one, that's for sure. Also a bit of a bitch, but that's okay. Not a bitch as in like a rude bitch, like a bitch as in like a baby. Because I definitely got mommied, like, by the cabin crew. The Virgin Atlantic cabin crew formed together to become like a parent for me on my flight in, because I am such a baby. It was an 11-hour flight in my defense. It was a long and very turbulent flight. I had never been on a flight before. And I think the thing with flying is you're kind of up 30,000 feet in the air, and you have that knowledge that, like, if anything was to go wrong in this situation, I'm just dead. Like, at least when you are, I don't know, in a car and you think that you're about to get an accident, you can try to steer away. You can try to, extend your life. When you are on a plane, there's quite frankly, there is nothing that I can do if this goes down. I am not a pilot. I do not know how to operate a plane. And even if I did, I don't think that I would be the person that they would want to be like, don't worry, guys, I'll bring this plane round. The plane's going down, I'm dying, and that's it. There's no escape. You're in like a little boat, a sky boat, just toppling towards the earth. You know? Frankly, that is the end of that. At least it'd be a quick exit, meet my maker on my way. But that's my main concern, I think, when I was flying. I was like, well, if I die in this situation, that is my peril. And maybe that's why that terrified me, because I just had no control. It's a control thing. But it gave me so much anxiety, and then the turbulence hit really bad, and I just threw up everywhere, which was wonderful. But I was very kindly looked after by the cabin crew. They seemed to tell me that it was like completely normal, and people throw up in the aisles and in the bathrooms all the time. Don't worry about it. Turbulence is like common, and people are afraid and blah blah blah. And I was normal, but I didn't feel normal. It feels embarrassing. It's like I was giving myself the ick from myself. It's almost like I wanted to jump out of my body and be another person, because it was so embarrassing to be me in that moment. I also got in the cab from the airport, from LAX, and drove to my apartment. And because I was kind of suffering with motion sickness from the flight, and had been like in a stuffy airport basement, because LAX, like, you go down the stairs to go to immigration, obviously, and then you queue there for 2.5 hours because you're a non-US citizen and they want to talk to you and stamp your passport. I spoke to somebody at immigration, considering I'm here like long term. I spoke to somebody at immigration for all of about 5 minutes, yet I stood in line for almost 2.5 hours. So if you are thinking of traveling to LA, don't. I would recommend going to like Colorado, or is Colorado better? Vegas. I mean, I would fly in if you could, probably to Santa Monica Airport, or the other airport that isn't LAX, if you can, because LAX is a nightmare. It's not somewhere that you want to be. It is a place on Earth that you do not want to be spending 2.5 hours of your time in, let alone having no choice but to spend 2.5 hours there. Like, you cannot go anywhere. You're in a queue. You're just walking forward. I needed a drink. There was nowhere once I got off my flight where I could grab a drink. No vending machine, no cafe, no nothing. You just go straight from the plane. You walk down into an escalator, down the escalator, to what looks like a human pen, like a farm pen of people, hundreds of people just zigzagged like the queue for Drayton Manor theme park, like getting on a ride. Imagine you were in Alton Towers, getting on, I don't know, well, actually, Alton Towers has a bad reputation because somebody had to get their limbs amputated after a crash, so I can't imagine it's like that. Maybe like the queues for Disneyland, for like the most popular rides. Probably busier than that, even. probably busier than that. It was chaos. It's not even chaos in the sense that everything was going on all at once. It's the fact that nothing was happening. Nothing was really moving. You would just kind of snail's pace it, and it just creates this chaos in your brain of like, I have too much thinking time. I have nothing else to do. My phone, obviously, being a UK phone, could not connect to the internet over here because my phone provider was like, what are you doing? Are you in the US? Why are you in the US? Are you paying for roaming? And I didn't want to pay for roaming initially because I was assuming that it was going to be expensive, but it wasn't. It's like £2 a day. £2 a day. I really need to just get a US phone, but I keep forgetting to do that because it doesn't feel like a priority to me. Which it should be. It really should be, but it's not. So I just had to walk snail's pace forward every 2 minutes for 2.5 hours. I get to the front. He's like, what are you doing here? Told him why I'm here. He's like, cool. Stamps my passport. He's like, have fun. I was like, that's it? Really? That's it? I don't have like that world entry thing. I don't have like any special thing. I have an ESTA and a visa thing that I give them. And they're just like, okay, go in. I mean, I don't think they took a picture of me and they took my fingerprints, which I mean, I think that's just like normal in most countries that you visit. Would assume it's kind of similar in the UK. I would imagine so anyway. But it wasn't particularly difficult to get into the US. Actually, I think my immigration officer for the US came and met me at Heathrow instead of me meeting them at LAX, so I wouldn't be able to fly if I didn't like pass whatever test or questions that he was asking me for this interview before I boarded my flight. They wouldn't have let me fly because they wouldn't have let me in at the gate at LAX. So I think that kind of worked out well for me. It was kind of scary, to be honest. He was like really stocky and bold and American, and he asked me questions that kind of felt like irrelevant, but I think he wanted to know if I was a terrorist, which yeah, no, obviously not. As you can see, I have no volatile or violent intentions. I just kind of wanted to live in a hot climate and live my little life, but that interview kind of put me on edge. Then I got on the flight where I was already further on edge about flying, and the staff were really great, really, really nice. Threw up on the flight, had a really, really amazing flight buddy that I was sat next to called Libby. So nice, kind of like my mom. She gives me mom vibes. She definitely mommied me. Everybody on that flight mommied me. Those who didn't mommy me were probably shaming me for throwing up in the aisle, but what can you do, you know? When you have to go, you have to go. When you're sick, like, there is nothing that one can do at the ripe age of 27 to prevent myself from just throwing up. I just had to kind of let it happen, live, laugh, love. I think everybody around me was kind of disgusted. It is what it is. I couldn't do anything. There was nothing to be done. It was going to happen, whether I tried or not to prevent it. It was going to happen. Everybody had their seatbelts on because it was like the turbulence had hit, and I think that's what did it for me. It pushed me over the edge. I can't, pre-foreshadow turbulence. I didn't know that my body was going to react that way, but it did. And then I threw up in the cab because I had motion sickness from the flight. So that's another time that I was sick in a public place that it was incredibly embarrassing for me. I kept saying to myself, like, I am an adult. I'm an adult. Like, throwing up when you're 10 years old because you've ate too much, like, I don't know, jelly at a, like, kids' party, pretty acceptable. Throwing up on Melrose Avenue, I believe. Was it Melrose? I believe so. Outside of, well, not even outside of, out the window of a cab that I had got at LAX. I had to put the window down, like, you know, button straight down. Told him, like, hey, I'm gonna throw up now. I'd say hope that's okay with you, but frankly, you don't really have an option, and neither do I. So at least I had the decency of putting the window down and throwing my head out prior to doing so. But what makes this worse is that we were stopped at a red light turning into a different street. It was 5 p.m. That is rush hour traffic for those of you who are unaware of that. So there were a lot of cars around me on the first day into LA, and on my way to my apartment. And they all probably saw me throwing up out the side of a car. In my very chic Virgin Atlantic first class pajama set that they very kindly gave to me after I threw up down myself on the flight. So not only did I throw up on my flight, but I threw up on Melrose Avenue out the side of a taxi in the most unlike me fashion. It was not ladylike whatsoever. It was definitely the most disgusting thing that I could have done, or to my knowledge at that point could have done, because we have yet to talk about the constipation to shitting myself arc that I was self-inflicted, actually, in fact, because I had constipation. So I took 4 different types of laxatives to undo the constipation, which didn't undo the constipation. It actually pushed me over to having diarrhea, because you're only supposed to take 1 laxative, not all 3 types of laxative that they sell at Ralph's, because you are desperate to take a shit. So we'll keep that story for another day. This is just, I suppose, an introduction to what will be a podcast segment on this channel about every little thing that I do, because I'm an oversharer. I don't know if that's abundantly clear to most of you, considering that I am happy to make these types of videos in my apartment all by myself, just talk to myself with a microphone all day, every day if I wanted to. I have lots to share. This is just part 1, the intro to me talking to myself with this fancy mic that I bought at Staples for $15. Things are cheap here. Things that shouldn't be cheap are cheap here, and things that should be cheap are expensive. Welcome to America, everyone. I sure did have a warm welcome, a wonderful welcome, and so I hope that you do too, vicariously through me and my terrible experiences since moving here. So I hope you enjoy the foreseeable future of podcast episodes with me. I am now a podcaster, apparently. What a transition in my life. So I will be talking about everything that I've been doing that hasn't been captured on video. Mainly those are dates, so those are the things that it's really quite inappropriate to pull a camera out and start vlogging, because you're on a date and that's not very romantic. But I will be doing like a recap, a date recap